for the Wealth Builder plan. $600 a month. Are you crazy? Nope. Because we guarantee that if you're a client for 20 years, your outcome is going to be $2 million in profit as opposed to the $45,000. And by the way, at any time you get frustrated and you want to sell out, we'll refund you the difference between the $600 a month and what you would have paid on our platinum plan. That's how confident we are that you're going to stick with it.
Hey, property management friends. Welcome to This Week in PM. I'm your host, Jeremy Pound, founder of RentScale and publisher of Strategic PM. Today, we're talking about rethinking the way we position property management to our clients. I've helped clients for years think bigger about the value that they bring to their housing providers. For example, let's think about how your clients experience other types of investments already in their lives. So once upon a time, if you wanted to invest in the stock market, you had one option, call a stockbroker. But fast forward to today, and they're extinct, replaced by two paths: do-it-yourself platforms like Robinhood, or high-value advisors and wealth managers who help their clients with more complex needs. That same split will continue in property management, and more owners are trying to do it themselves with technology, while others will look for something more like strategic guidance. The market is maturing. There's no doubt about that. And there's a rising of opportunity for a wealth manager version of property management. And those are firms that help their clients grow, optimize, and protect their real estate portfolios. They'll bring scale, insight, and access to strategies that solo landlords just can't touch. And when that happens, do-it-yourself won't feel like saving money. You'll start to feel like missing out. And there are a few other people talking about this in the industry. One of my favorites is Mark Brower from Mark Brower Properties in Arizona. I've got him here on the show today. I'm excited to let him share how he's thinking about this issue and shifting his product to make this a reality. So you see, there's always two businesses that you're working on as the owner. The one that you're running today and the one that you'll be running in 3 years. So what we're talking about today is very likely what your business may look like in 3 years' time. And Mark is just one of the many amazing speakers that we're bringing to the Strategic PM Summit. So if these ideas resonate with you today, or even if you have just no clue what your business might look like in the future, I'd encourage you to check this event out. We'll have more info in the comments below. It's in Fort Lauderdale this August, and I'll tell you more about it at the end of this show. So I hope you'll listen to this full interview, and I encourage you to think about what your business could look like next year or in the future. So let's go ahead and bring Mark on. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Strategic PM, the magazine for property management entrepreneurs and executives. If you go online to strategicpm.com today, you're going to find an entire website full of content written about your industry and by your peers. And it's completely free to sign up. Just go ahead and click on the create a free account right in the upper right-hand corner. When you click on that, not only can you create a digital account, but you can actually add your mailing address and we will send you a free 1-year subscription of the print magazine, which will be showing up in your offices every single quarter. So if you take a look inside the magazine, what you're going to see is that we are focused on growth. We've got 5 pillars of Strategic PM: vision, strategy, culture, marketing, and experience. You're going to be seeing some great high-class content from some of the best thought leaders in the industry talking about the matters that matter the most to your business. So sign up for free today at strategicpm.com and look for the magazine in your office. Welcome, Mark. Excited to be here with you.
Hey, Jeremy. Excited to be here.
Why don't you start by introducing yourself, your company, and just tell us a little bit about how long you've been doing this.
Certainly. Mark Brower, owner, founder, Mark Brower Properties. Been in business since 2011, serving the greater Phoenix area, have just over 500 individual landlord clients and just around 600 properties under management currently.
Great. Now, usually when you talk, because this isn't our first time, you're in this nice studio, like wood paneling and everything. What are you doing in your car today?
So I just bought my dream car, and it was not a rational decision.
Nor should dream cars be rational.
Yes. So I flew to Dallas, uh, spur of the moment, and now I'm halfway between Dallas and Phoenix, driving my car back home. So just got a nice upgrade to the mobile office, and that's where I'm at today.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. But I wanted to talk to you specifically today about kind of where you're going with the innovations of Mark Brower Properties and some other things that you're doing for the industry, because I think they're coming at a great time. I've been hearing a lot of great things about them. And so if you're okay, I will start by asking you about what this thought process is that you've been speaking about on social media around kind of transforming the way that our clients look at what property management is, and kind of what spurred that on, specifically from the needs of the investors that you're working with.
So, to share about that, Jeremy, I'm going to share a little story. So there's a loan servicer company called Nationstar Mortgage. Have you ever heard of them?
It's vaguely familiar, but I don't know anything about them.
A lot of people haven't heard of them, but they do business as a company called Mr. Cooper. And Mr. Cooper might sound a little more familiar. They were recently acquired by Rocket Mortgage, who also acquired Redfin, I believe. And so it's a really fascinating story to follow right now in real estate. And what Mr. Cooper did, I think, is a good example of what property managers nationwide have an opportunity to do if we will seize it. And that is they took a commoditized service business. Servicing mortgage loans is not sexy. It's not new. There's not a lot of innovation to it. And the margins in that business, I can only imagine, were very, very thin. But somebody came along and they thought, hey, we are in front of someone every month. We have an ongoing relationship with people. And sure, we just collect their mortgage and we put them in foreclosure if they don't pay, not altogether unlike property managers collecting rent. But what if we dared to expand our vision of what that relationship could be? And so they repackaged a boring, old, no margin business into Mr. Cooper, gave it personality, gave it life. And now suddenly, instead of getting a drab, accountant-worthy monthly statement from a very boring service company, now there's color on the statement, which costs more money. There's personality to the statement. Mr. Cooper's a person. And there's engagement and relationship. And not just engagement and relationship, Jeremy, but engagement and relationship that could have a transformative value creating impact. When I get interactions from Mr. Cooper, of course, they say, hey, we did an escrow analysis. Here's a couple videos to learn more about what that means. But they also say, hey, we noticed you have $180,000 of equity in this property. They also know approximately how old I am and what might be going on in my life. And they say, hey, college, wedding, key vacation. And they have little symbols in full color on my statements that show these things. So I resonate with them. So what they've done is they've engaged, they've changed the game of loan servicing to a transformative relationship management partnership. And so now they're suddenly engaged with my life. They know approximately where I'm at in my life, what my needs are, and they know that one of the biggest resources I have is the equity in my different properties. And they are all too happy, very willing to help me access that equity. And now suddenly, instead of making a 10% profit margin business, if they can engage with maybe 15 or 20% of their clients and help with mortgage refinancing or other similar services, maybe insurance, then suddenly they've 5x or 10x their profitability in those client relationships. This is not altogether different from where we are right now in the property management industry. There's a tremendous opportunity for property managers to level up our vision about the potential in the relationship with our clients and the potential to 10x or more, not only our profitability in that relationship, but the value we're delivering for them.
Absolutely. And so what would that look like? I mean, that was a great story. And I love it that, you pictured the visual, the graphics, the icons. It's taking complex information and options and distilling it down into an instantly recognizable icon. And I'm guessing also as the months went on, they started to train you to think differently about the reports and what that meant. And so there was a lot of subtle inception there, or grooming, as they might say, in a positive way. And so what might that look like for investors working with their property manager?
I think before we start deploying tactics that do the things that have the influence and that change the conversation, first we need to have a clear vision about what the potential could be. And that's what I'm really excited about. I think that if we start asking ourselves the question, what is the most value I can create for this client? And we start finding answers that then intersect with our unique abilities. And I think that's important, Jeremy. I think sometimes when we look at literature, self-improvement literature, specific to business, and in our case, the property management industry, it's people really want these checklists. They want 3 things that I did to take my business from $1 million to $2 million in revenue. They want 5 things to increase sales by 20%. And instead of, these nice little checklists, instead of these nice little packaged up checklists, instead, what we need to be aware of is that every single company possesses a slightly different character. And it's usually a character that magnifies the character of the founder or the CEO or the visionary leader, right? And so because each person is blessed with different gifts and talents, they add value in a slightly different way. So when we're talking about trying to 10xing the value that we can drive to owners, our property management client owners, and 10xing our profitability, we first need to understand what is our unique ability, what is our unique value prop that only we can do in our way, and how does that intersect with this vision of creating maximum value. So that's important, and I think it's often overlooked. It's like we kind of think it's one size fits all, and we can all apply these 5 or 7 point checklists to improve our business, but without an understanding of how I'm different and how my superpowers, when I lean into my superpowers, they create more value that creates a moat around my business where people can't really touch that value. That's, I think, often overlooked, and it's super important. So setting that aside for a moment and just talking broadly about the value, wouldn't it be cool if we could take a certain subset of our clients and instead of them at the end of our relationship having a net income of about $45,000 or $50,000, and I'll explain that in a moment, what if instead we could transform that into a $2 million wealth building opportunity? See, what happens in property management, and we know this statistically, the average landlord only stays with the property manager around 5 years. Why do we know that? Because 20% churn means the average client relationship is 5 years long. Okay, well, what happens over 5 years? If you start with a $400,000 property, and let's assume that the mortgage is in the first third of its lifetime, so the principal pay down is not very aggressive right now. What happens over 5 years with that owner is they have about maybe a 3 or 4% appreciation rate on rent, 3 to 4% appreciation rate on the home value, and then they pay 7% in 5 years to sell that home. Let's say that's the scenario. They net about 45 grand. Okay, so let's compare that for a moment, because this really highlights the magnitude of the opportunity that we have. Let's compare that for a moment. That's 45 grand that they're better off. What if instead we could cast a vision that was so exciting and so clear, with so much confidence and support around it, that instead of selling after 5 years, they held on for 20 years. Instead of just holding on to that one property, every 5 to 7 years, they harvested the latent capital sitting in that property and they added to their holdings. In 20 years, I could show you on paper how that $400,000 property is now a portfolio of 4 properties. And we didn't just sort of wash out and cash in with 45,000, we actually have equity 20 years later that's over $2 million between those 4 properties. And it's not that difficult to do, but it requires that we first dare to be audacious enough to believe that it's possible to work with clients for 20 years and then show them visually, because it's hard for people to create pictures in their mind from words. But if we create the tools and the routines and the touch points that show them, like, this is you are here. Here's your journey. Here's your 20-year journey. We're going for $2 million. We talk about that in the beginning. We get excited about it and we say, here's how that works. And here's you, dot on the map, and hang in there. We're making great progress. Suddenly now, not only does that 10x the potential for that's more than a 20. What is that? That's a 50x, no, 40x of their outcome. And you could argue, well, that's over 20 years, not 5 years. You're not comparing apples to apples. Okay, well, let's say you take the 45,000 payoff over 5 years and you invested that in the S&P 500, and then you compare the two. We're still 10 to 20x more value. Okay, so if we could show people that and show them where they're at and orient them to that vision on day one, man, what would our churn be for those clients? If people stay 20 years, what's that churn rate? It's like 5%.
Yeah.
That's unheard of, right? And
Yeah.
By the way, how much are we making as we go along and we earn these commissions along the way? The profitability moves from $4,000 lifetime profitability for that short-term client to a $30,000 or $40,000 lifetime profit to the property management company owner.
Yeah, and I bet they're going to a heck of a whole lot more likely to refer you other business when they have that mindset. It's really funny because as I hear you tell that story, it confirms everything we know if you just pick up and read about real estate investing from anybody who's done it longer than we have. And ironically, I think that most of the property management owners who've run their business for a long time got into the business because they were doing that. And they were very confused when people showed up and they weren't taking the same long-term approach as them. But what's interesting, it's, everything that comes to communication and persuasion in my mind always kind of comes back to kind of our evolutionary biology. When you think about it, for millions of years, humans didn't live to be older than 35, 40 years old. That was an advanced age. And I still think our minds play tricks on us and are very poor at believing in compound interest and anything that involves time. And including those people that make it to the 5-year window, unfortunately, all they know is the first 5 years. And if they never experience the second 5 years, as you're saying, they're always just going to assume it'll be 5 more years of what the last 5 years were. And so I'm really inspired by tools, techniques, stories, games that will help people break out of this intuitive mindset of just to be thinking about survival and just the next couple of years, avoid pain, go after the easy button. But as we know, it's everything that basically makes real estate investing fail.
Couple of thoughts. There's a tremendous power that comes from shifting thinking to the very long-term thinking. If we make decisions, we know this as property managers. When you can convince an owner to spend a little bit more money now to fix up the property, to be a little bit better, not only can we reduce vacancy, increase rents, increase retention, but also reduce maintenance costs. So that's a payoff for thinking very long term. In my prior professional life, Jeremy, I was a commercial land broker. We would sell land from farmers to developers and then from developers onto the home builder. These were large deals. They took multi-year transactions to close. And when there was a downturn in the market, your whole pipeline got wiped out. And that's one of the reasons I actually started a property management company, because I was growing my family at the time. And I'm like, this feast and famine roller coaster is not for me. But one thing that I learned in that industry is I met some people who thought very differently than I did, and they had a lot of money. And so I was curious about that. And one of the traits, one of the things that I found was a pattern, Jeremy, is that landowners that were worth a lot of money didn't think in terms of years. They didn't even think in terms of decades. They thought in terms of generations. I can't tell you how many really, really smart, really wealthy farmers that I talked to that said, stuff like, I think that piece of land's for my grandkids. They're gonna figure out what to do with that. They thought in terms of generations. What if we could inspire our owners? What if we could create tools, content, material, resources? What if we shaped the way we talk so that when they interact with us, their thinking starts shifting from years. I've got a short-term problem. I have rent that needs to be collected and toilets that need to be fixed. Don't talk to me about anything else. And by the way, you need to be the cheapest solution because that's the scope of my problem. If you're not interested, I'm moving on. What if instead we change that entire conversation to not just, well, hey, in 5 to 10 years, you could be sitting, really nice with some equity and you need some peace of mind emotionally to be able to tolerate the journey that's in front of you to be able to get there, which is really important. What if we could shift beyond that and say, hey, what if this property has other rental property babies and we build a portfolio and this creates a legacy for future generations in your family? Would that be something worth investing in? Would that be a worthy goal? And if we start talking about that and we start reinforcing that idea, not all of our clients are going to catch that vision, but more are going to catch that vision than otherwise would if we didn't start with that vision. And that would be a really powerful thing. What if our mission, what if our vision for adding value was the intersection of our gifts and talents to creating intergenerational wealth for clients? What kinds of opportunities for profitability enter that picture? Are they larger in scope or smaller in scope than just thinking I need more leads to close more doors because doors is my vanity metric and that's the only thing that matters, right? One of the things I love, sorry, I'm a little bit of a rant here. One of the things I love about the event that you're doing in August that I'm so thrilled to be part of is that we're not just talking about the vanity metric of doors. We're talking about revenue. And when we zoom out and we talk about revenue, Jeremy, it brings in all kinds of other ideas about how we leverage our unique abilities in maximum value creation that allows us to harvest that additional revenue.
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, this is why we have the vision for the event. And I think that it's easy for, property management owners, entrepreneurs, as well as the investors that we work with on a daily basis, to too quickly calculate the profit, as you're saying. Just another fancy way of saying what you're saying. It's just like, if you really knew what that property made you over 10 years versus what it made you after 2 years when you sold it, you'd be blown away and you'd probably kick yourself like crazy. And us as business owners do that as well. We give something an initiative a little while, and we see the money come in, and every book we read and most of the things we're taught is protect the profits, like take the money, which, at some point you have to do without a doubt. So that, like all complicated concepts in life, it's never a maxim to one side or the other. But as you just use that illustration of what if your property had other rental babies, right? Sometimes the profit or the money you're making in your business, rather than take home, a 5 or 6 figure cash amount, you could make investments that would come back and print 5 or 6 cash investments 15 times over, right? The hard part is the dichotomy of those two things. You know what I mean? And it's the painful memory of when you try it and it doesn't work out, or at least you don't think it worked out because you judged it quickly, that far supersedes the memory we have of when it did work out. And I think, again, that's just human nature that we have to untrain.
We are emotional creatures. One of my favorite books about money is The Psychology of Money. And one of the biggest takeaways I got from that book is we should not be pursuing the optimal investment strategy, optimal on paper. In fact, the guy that won the Nobel Prize for inventing modern portfolio theory was asked by a reporter, did he follow his own investing theory? And he said no. And shocked, they said, why? And the answer is because he knew he didn't have the emotional makeup to be able to tolerate being down 50% in value occasionally, which is what his theory required to be done. Warren Buffett talks about this all the time. So we know that we're emotional creatures, and we know that we should. So because given we are emotional creatures, And given that our emotions drive our behaviors, we should only pursue the investment strategy, the optimal investment strategy that we can emotionally tolerate. And not a small part of what property management can do at a transcendent level is understanding the psychology of our owners and making it easier emotionally for them to stay in the asset for decades instead of years and have that fighting chance of wealth creation. There's an accelerating, so it kind of back to that idea of like, what if we had a visual that showed owners, you are here, here's your roadmap, 20 years, you are here. That first 5 to 7 years, really difficult for new landlords. That's why most of them sell. Most of them get out. It's an emotionally difficult path. I like to say that accidental landlords, don't know it, but they just walked into a casino from hell and they're playing a reverse slot machine where without warning, if the numbers come up wrong, they have to cough up $5,000. Most people with no business experience don't understand that, and it's very painful for them. So what are we doing as property managers? So here's a radical idea. What if we designed a program where we impounded part of the rent each month for upcoming vacancies and upcoming repairs? Now, I've never been bold and confident enough to roll out such a program, but what if we knew that the act of doing so made it much more likely that someone stays 10 or 20 years with us instead of 5 years? And what if we bundled in an actual financial incentive reward for owners that adopted that program, and we actually could reduce our management fees to them? So this is a creative idea. I don't know anybody that's tried it, but it's probably worthy of an experiment. Also, what if we said, here's a crazy idea, Jeremy. What if we said, hey, we've got different management plans, but our wealth builder plan is, our fee is $600 a month for the wealth builder plan. $600 a month? Are you crazy? Nope. Because we guarantee that if you're a client for 20 years, your outcome is going to be $2 million in profit as opposed to $45,000. And by the way, at any time you get frustrated and you want to sell out, we'll refund you the difference between the $600 a month and what you would have paid on our platinum plan. That's how confident we are that you're going to stick with it. But there's a requirement. You have to let us impound for future vacancies and repairs, and you could build a program. And guess what? What if only 10% of people adopted that plan, or 5%? Could it be possible that just having that plan created elevates our entire brand, just like the shiny Ferrari on the raised platform at the front of the dealership? Nobody can buy that car, but there's a halo effect over the entire dealership. So it's just another sort of maybe creative, audacious, crazy maybe idea that starts our thought process. It's a thought exercise. It's a concept that maybe we don't adopt that concept, but maybe we go halfway between where we are today and that idea, and things start changing. But that's only possible if we elevate our vision about what's possible.
Well said. That is a bold idea. I want to use that to transition into what you're thinking with Mark Brower University, kind of as part of that vision. So I love that a lot of that conversation is how you might manage this experience for the real estate investors on the end game. But what are you trying to do to kind of elevate the industry, and what would that actually look like in Mark Brower University?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's string these ideas together. So if our mission, if it's a worthy goal for us to aim for the very highest we can go with our value creation in our property management businesses, and if the intersection of that objective and our unique abilities leads us to conclude that we should be a wealth building advisory and an asset management firm. Okay. And we know that one of the chief, like we just discussed, one of the chief roadblocks for emotional people staying in an asset long enough to have a fighting chance of building wealth is their own emotional liabilities. Then unwittingly, accidental landlords are hiring us not just to collect rent and fix toilets, but to help them transform their emotional character to be to have more grit, longevity, endurance, so that they can really build that wealth. Well, now we're talking about if that's an intended impact of our company, now we're talking about a completely different skill set that we need to develop within our organization. We need to take a page out of the financial planners playbook, and we need to be having conversations with people about what's your risk tolerance, what are your future goals, what's your financial strength. How emotionally impactful is it when someone disrespects your property? We need to understand the psychological makeup of owners, first of all, profile that and have that information available to everyone in the organization, and start orienting the way we communicate to their specific persona. Also, we need to be highly, highly skilled at having conversations that de-escalate effectively enough that we can help people stay in the game for the long run. And what does that look like? So there's something really important that I've noticed over the last couple of years. And it's what caused me to think of the Mark Brower University is property managers experience something over and over and over and over again. And that thing is, they'll be doing their job. They'll be doing actually a very good job for the owner. The owner swoops in out of nowhere, starts asking lots of questions, and starts getting way too involved. Okay? Everybody's experienced this. Why is this happening? We don't know, actually. We're not even brave enough to ask the question, why are you behaving like this? We're just worried about losing the business. So what do? We start answering all the questions, and we start hustling double time, and we start giving them more information. We start deferring to them and start asking them if things are okay to do. Well, what's happening in the relationship here? What's happening is that we are behaving in a way that communicates to them, you should be concerned, you should be swooping in, you should be micromanaging me. And that's the exact opposite of what the landlord wants. What they really want, but they don't know it, they can't name their need, is they have a deep psychographic need to feel confident, but something jarred that confidence. Well, guess what? Restoring confidence does not look like increasing our service and our communication and our cadence and like bringing them into a position of control. That's actually the opposite of what they need. It's what they're asking for, but it's the opposite of what they need. What do they need? They need someone that has enough bravery and confidence to answer their question directly, but then zoom out and talk about the relationship and push them back onto their side of the line and say, I need you to give me a high level of support and trust, and not demand immediate answers, and not demand to be involved in every decision, and not demand strict accountability when I'm in the middle of the fray. That's what I need from you. And if we do that one thing in a high enough skilled manner, then everything can change about the client relationship. And they stay longer, and they're more profitable, and they're less needy, and But property managers usually have a servant heart. And when someone's crying in pain, our immediate reaction is to allow the rush in and meet them where they are. And that's really not what they need. What they're desperate for, and what they're challenging us about, and I think there's a nuance here that I think it's really powerful, is they're saying the subtext of their behavior is, am I safe with you? Can I trust you? And how we behave in that in that scenario is so important. And it is not what they're asking for. It's the opposite. But it has to be done with bravery and clarity. And that's an uncommon skill in property management. And that's one of the reasons I'm creating Mark Brower University, is to teach how to develop that skill. It starts with a mindset. It starts with emotional bravery. And then it also includes practice. Because this stuff, Jeremy, you and I have been in business a long time, and we've had certain scenarios that served up that are rare, but highly impactful and very uncomfortable. And you only learn how to be present in those situations when you handle enough of them and you mess up enough times that then you come out the other end with an increased skill set. So wouldn't it be cool if we could map out what happens in property management on a recurring basis, the most difficult parts of it, increase our awareness about them, and then practice those conversations so that when we're in the heat of the moment, we can see the roadmap for what it is, and we can use the skills that we've developed in practice. This is why salespeople role play all the time. Our property managers need property management, landlord therapy masterclasses if we're going to have this fighting chance of keeping them in the asset long term.
Absolutely, I agree. And ironically, I ran a marketing agency before RentScale, and in that industry, again, servant heart. Those people want to do everything they can to make the visual work as appealing as possible to their customers. They're dealing with people that are asking to do things and technologies that they don't understand. And they definitely don't understand the complexity of getting something that seems so simple can actually take hours and tens of thousands of dollars over the budget of what they've committed to. And it's just amazing that there's just everything you just said is very, very popular and a premium consulting in the design world and the marketing world, because again, everybody is just getting trampled and losing their profits because they're over servicing compared to what they've promised. So I'm glad that we're bringing that to this industry as well. I mean, we do talk a lot about that on the sales side too. It's a smaller version of that, but it's not losing control of the call, and it's understanding the value you deliver and basically, inserting the status alignment so that person feels like they're talking to an equal or to an advisor versus someone that they're just going to direct and orchestrate everything that they do, which doesn't make anybody happy, as you said, except for the narcissist. And we should use that as a screening tool.
That's right. About an hour ago, thinking ahead to our conversation, one of the ideas that popped in my head is, what if our business development managers, what if they, to that end, what you just described, setting that proper relationship expectation, what if they said something like, we work really hard to be really clear with our expectations and, to try to show you exactly what you're going to in a relationship with us, but neither of us knows exactly how things are going to go until we're in the middle of it. And we've found that our service offering is a really great fit for about 70% of the landlords. And so if we find out it's not the right fit for you, we'll just have to be honest about that and make a smooth transition for you to find someone else. But we're very hopeful, and our service is very valuable for the right fit. So, let's see how this goes. And then it orients them that, okay, Mark already told me he's not going to do it my way. He already told me that 30% of the people aren't a good fit for him. He charges a lot of money, and so I really want to keep qualifying for his service. Yep.
And the one thing you should add to that is, and he also manages a lot of properties. So clearly that proves that the problem is not you. And that you don't ever have to say that out loud. But I think when you can demonstrate that, logical people start to question their needs.
I have one more thought on that. It's sort of related. I had yesterday I took an Uber. My Uber driver shared with me that his son owns a tattoo parlor in Dallas. And he's a gifted artist. He also paints murals, like on the side of buildings, for instance. And he said, yeah, my son told me, he's like, Dad, I said, hey, son, how much do you charge for a mural like that? And he said, if I don't charge enough, if I quote them a fair price, then they haggle with me. But when I quote them a ridiculously expensive price, they never push back. It's like, wow, there's something there. There's something really interesting there.
Yes.
Every business development manager and property management can relate to the fee objection, right? What if that just means that we're not charging enough? I remember when I, years ago, I had a prospective client that had a higher end property, maybe rented for like in Phoenix at the time, 10 years ago, like $4,000 or $3,500 a month. And I was 10% of rent collected. And he's like, the guy down the street charges a flat $79 a month. And I didn't bat an eye. And I said, he doesn't do what I do. It's a completely different business model. If that works for you, I encourage you to try it. But if it doesn't work, just keep my name in mind. And some of our clients, our happiest clients are usually those that have experienced other property management first. And he was so intrigued by the fact that I'm 4 times as expensive that he couldn't resist. And we ended up working together. So.
Of course. I mean, and just to put a point on that, people outside of the industry, of any industry, right? tattoos, murals, property management, high-end advertising, they're very quick to surrender that they don't know everything about the process. They don't have a complete mental model. Unfortunately, until they experience something they've never heard or seen before, they walk around with 100% confidence because they bought something before, or because they're a smart procurer of produce at the grocery store, or they know how to haggle with their attorney, that therefore they're a well-qualified, top-notch consumer of every good and service in the world. But I think deep down, as soon as we learn something we didn't know before, it's the fastest way to put cracks in that confidence, and then they start listening.
And how do you do that, Jeremy? I don't mean to flip the interview, but how do you put cracks in that?
Well, you did a great example. You basically showed that a lot of people that look like him or who he aspires to be are using you, and you have a very different model. So obviously social proof is a great way to do that, right? Just think about when we were all kids, and I don't know how you grew up, but I don't think I ever had tennis shoes that were more than $15, $20. And then I heard that, all the Jordans were like $150. And I never once in a million years thought that shoes should ever cost anything. And now my parents would never buy those for me. But it's just an example I think we can all relate to. As soon as you see other people doing that, that's why this game is so much easier when you have results, right? When you have a process and a portfolio. And I'd also say educating why people are not getting the result they want in a logical way is the fastest way to create that crack. So it's basically, you're probably calling us because you have these issues. You think this is a normal experience with this service. Well, here's why this is happening. And this is what people learn when they no longer have those problems. And it's just a really fast way to get people to lower their guard and start listening to how you're selling.
Yeah, I love that. The idea of social proof. Robert Cialdini, in his book Influence, talks about social proof as one of the most influential drivers of human behavior. It also makes me think, Jeremy, about the use of cases. If people can see not just a hypothetical future projection, because let's face it, we've all been lied to in our lives. And so when we're being sold something, we discount a future projection. But I guarantee you, I would have unlimited business and unlimited profitability if I invented a time machine and I could go back 20 years and give people access to buying unlimited real estate at 20-year ago prices. 100% guaranteed. I would not be able to keep up with that workload. Right?
I will be client number one. You can test this on me.
The reality is, I'm highly, highly confident that in the right markets, we're going to see a repeat in the next 20 years of what happened in the last 20 years. In fact, I remember after the 2008 bubble burst, it was the chief economist of American Express wrote a book called, Bubbles, How to Recognize Them and How to Avoid Them, or something like that. And I was fascinated. So I read it. And one of the things he said was he talked about real estate, and he talked about the probability that you would lose money investing in real estate over different investment horizons. Like the probability of losing money if you only invest in real estate for 5 years was like, 38%. If it was 10 years, it felt like 15%. By the time you got to 20 years, never in the history, of mankind, even through the Great Depression, would you have lost money invested in real estate over a 20-year time frame. And so, are we putting together cases that don't just show the future of what we expect to happen in our client relationships, but show real stories of what happened in the past in a compelling way, attaching a person to it, maybe a picture to it, pictures of the homes, the actual numbers? Do we have that kind of material to share with our clients?
It's a great concept to leave it on. I want to let you get back on the road with your dream car. Congrats again. For anybody who's intrigued by this, how can they learn more about what you're teaching?
Definitely give me a follow on LinkedIn. I post a lot on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter, Mark's newsletter. It's on Beehive. There's a link to my newsletter on my LinkedIn profile. I write weekly. And then, of course, look forward to speaking at the RentScale event in August. And it's going to be a great time.
Yes, come hear these ideas expanded upon, challenge, and maybe even visualized at the Strategic PM Summit in Fort Lauderdale in August. I appreciate you, Mark.
It's been a pleasure, Jeremy. Thank you for having me.
So what'd you think? Are you going to change anything in your business based on that conversation? What did you think about Mark's ideas? Are they radical or just maybe a tiny bit ahead of their time? And most importantly, what does your business look like in 3 years? Now wait, don't tell me. I'd rather hear it in person because I'm going to a lot of industry events in the near future. So let's go ahead and check out the event calendar. All right, so I will say that all I'm hearing about is buzz from the Rent-Find User Conference, which just passed us. And that's just one of the events that we've been promoting on this show. So if you've got a favorite property management event coming up or you're hosting an event, please let us know and we'd be happy to provide this to our viewers so that you never miss an event that you should have been at in the property management space. So our next event is one that both Jen and I are traveling to. In fact, we're speaking at, and that is the NARPM Southern States Conference. It's June 11th to 13th, and it's in Birmingham, Alabama. Southern States is always great because it's more of a regional conference, and it's larger than just a state conference. So hope to see you at that one. After that, we've got the event that Mark is speaking at, as well as the one that we're putting most of our time and energy to, and that is the Strategic PM Summit. It's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, August 21st and 22nd. It's an amazing 2-day event where we are just going to talk about working on the business of property management. So we have a guarantee that if you come to this event, you give us 2 days, we're going to show you how to add at least $200,000 of revenue this year to your business based on the tools and the techniques that we're sharing at this conference. And again, you'll not only be working on the business that you run today, you'll be working on that second business, and that's the business that you'll be running in 3 years. I'm also excited to say that we just released a VIP add-on where we're actually going to take a yacht out for dinner with the speakers and a select group of the attendees to have a little bit more intimate of conversation. So definitely check that out if you're concerned about falling behind or want to stay ahead in the property management industry, because that's what the Strategic PM Summit is all about. After that, we are going to another state conference. September 9th through 11th, we'll be at the NARPM Florida State Conference on Hutchinson Island in Florida. And again, I do believe Jen and I are speaking at that one, but we will definitely be there in full force with the RentScale team. I hope to see you there. Now, a new event that we're just announcing is September 16th to 18th. Our good friends at Property Meld are holding the Property Meld Maintenance Summit. They're holding that at their headquarters or near their headquarters in Rapid City, South Dakota. It's also another event that I hear great things about as soon as it's over. So if you're looking to up your game on the maintenance side, which is a huge part of property management, as you know, then I definitely encourage you to check out the Property Meld Maintenance Summit. So those are the events that you can see me at soon, and we're always adding to them, so check back for future event calendars. Thanks for being here today, and make sure you're subscribed to Strategic PM on any or all of the channels. You can find future shows like this on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, X, and Spotify. Plus, you can see the articles that we publish in between these shows and on any of the social platforms. So I hope to see you here next time. But until then, that's what's happening this week in PM.